Fat Jockey podcast. This week you've just got Kev Loaf and myself, and we're just going to discuss one of the Championship Grade 1s. John, unfortunately, has got a dose of the man flu, and he's going to be back with us next week. So, Kev, this week we're going to tackle the Stairs Hurdle, a race that's got some real iconic winners over the years. Probably the biggest of all being Big Bucks, but also English Dreamer and Barracuda, both also being multiple winners. But it's a long time since those horses now, and it's felt pretty average for the last few years, for a decade or more, I suppose. This season, potentially, we could have, a real upgrade in the race. We've got Florian Porter, last year's winner, who was a very good winner, I thought. Time Hill, Let's Exhibition, Buzz, Abracadabras, Classical Dream. Perhaps we start somewhere else. We'll talk about all of those horses. Do you think there are any more horses in play in this race? Is it just those?
I think there are a few definitely worth looking at. I will pull you up though on straight away. Nothing in the last 10 years. You're missing the mighty Thistle Monster.
Oh,
one of the best performances, one of the most memorable Cheltenham moments. That was an unbelievable win. Unbelievable horse.
He beat Donkeys though, to be fair.
He did, but he beat them 100 miles, which is amazing.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. If you put a thoroughbred racehorse, even if it's average on Blackpool Beach, it's going to win by a country mile, isn't it? Even if the Donkeys have only got little kids on. So, look, I'm being facetious. For me, really nice racehorse, but it was hardly a classic renewal, which is really what I'm alluding to there. And look, unfortunately, he didn't really go on to have perhaps the career that we all thought he would over fences. I mean, he did win some nice races, but I certainly thought he was a potential Gold Cup winner in waiting.
I think he would. He would the novice King George win, and then he missed that. He missed the race, didn't he? I think there was some nice Fat Jockey prices on him. I remember that year. It was probably before you joined, actually, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, I missed all that discussion, unfortunately. But nice horse. Times.
Yeah, super. So back to the actual question. So of the ones the first place I start looking, and as most people will probably know, I have only just started looking again this year, as normally I'd be sort of where you are and already deep involved. But the first place I look is just previous winners, any horse that's shown festival winning form, and then Cheltenham form after that. So just looking down the list, there was one at 25 to 1 or 33 to 1. You got Liz Nagoroska. Now that was a horse that I would have been tipping last year, for the same reasons I could make this year, but he didn't do it last year, so straight away just not as excited by that as I am, and there's sort of no real rush to back him. He'd be a backable price on the day, even if he won a trial. So sort of anti-post, that's not one that I'm particularly interested in so far. And then there was Indefatigable that I suppose we'll mention, as she's running this weekend again. She is,
yeah. She's at Newbury in the Stairs Hurdle there, isn't she?
Yeah, with
Friday.
Yeah, I mean she was she finished ahead of Paisley Park last time. She's second favourite, isn't she? Let's see if I can get it up. Let's see if I can work some magic. Ready for this, guys? They're not expecting this, are they? They're not expecting this. How do I do it? I
thought for a second when he said they're not expecting this, they weren't going to be disappointed. But
yeah, sorry, guys. Second favourite against Paisley Park, despite finishing ahead last time. Have you got any thoughts on?
Yeah, I think for Friday, I think she'd be my fancy in the race as well. Actually, there's been little bits of talk about Tom's Derby up and Trip, and it's never really quite happened. He's just never looked the same horse he was 2 or 3 years ago. Paisley Park definitely isn't the horse he was 2 or 3 years ago. Indefatigable probably had a bit of a season off last year. She wasn't the same horse she was the season before, but she started the season off really well and looks like the horse she was. So I think you're right to point out that she's already had Paisley Park's measure in the past. I'm actually quite surprised that she's second favourite and not favourite, if I'm really honest.
Yeah,
Paisley Park's there as favourite on name, I think.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, is it something you would consider? Would you back her this weekend, or you're not inclined to?
Look, I probably will have a small bet on Indefatigable on Friday. Not a chance I'll back her in the stayers. There's no form there that has her within £15 of the horse that'll win that. I don't think she'd place. I think she might be able to trot on for 5th, 6th, 7th, that kind of thing. But
I mean,
too deep.
She's the kind of horse that I would like having won that Martin Pipe, when the race that the Martin Pipe we don't talk about because of the fall at the last, but she did pick up the pieces there. She was 50 to 1 on the day. She's the kind of horse you would hope would be a big price in
yeah. Well, I think so.
25 to 1.
I think it'd be nice to think all the horses we're going to talk about today will make it there, but the reality is that they won't. And there's a good chance that when you've got those extra places that the bookies are offering in the lead up, she'll be one of the big prices you'll be considering.
Yeah.
But I think she's probably one amongst many. I think there's a few horses sort of floating around potentially for me that have to come under consideration. There's another one running in that same race, Mrs. Milner. That for me is quite an interesting comparison because we've got the comparison from her win in the Pertemps final on the same day as the stayers last year, and obviously a direct comparison to the times with Florine Porter. Florine Porter carried £15 more and won. He won comfortably by comparison. I think it was 8 seconds quicker than Mrs. Milner. If you want to put seconds into pounds, she's got to go and find £2 this season, 2 stones this season. And
that was one of the arguments people had for Cider Burley stepping up into this year's Stayers Hurdle, and I was dead against it, and I suppose was wrong because he ran well, didn't he? And he was second, wasn't he?
He was, but there was a difference there though, and that was that Cider Burley, using the same time comparisons to that year's Stayers Hurdle, he would have gone close. So he deserved the chance last year.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, like that. If she's not getting there, what I mean is Cider Burley, I was against him because that was the reason. So if she's not even there, with that as a benefit, if you know what I mean, it's not something that she wouldn't come into my consideration at all. And like you're looking at the same prices. So what's she for this weekend? So she's 11 to 2, Indefatigable 7 to 2, Paisley Park's 2 to 1. You can get 25 to 1 for all 3 of those horses. Yeah, so to me, I mean, one angle would be looking at that and seeing, well, Paisley Park is the favourite and he's 25 to 1 anti-post and he's got the Cheltenham form. So if you were forcing me to have a bet there, automatically I'd think Paisley Park is the one I'd be closest to backing just because he's won and placed in the race before. So 25 to 1, that's almost where I'd automatically back something. And I think if I'd already backed something, I may well add him. But because I don't know if I'll make a book in this race now, it's been a race that's had double figure runners every year that I can remember, and it doesn't sort of lend itself to it, certainly not this far out for me. But I think when I looked through, that was the closest I was to having a bet before we did this. I'm sure you might be able to change my mind by the end of it, but again, with me thinking he's maybe not a good bet for this weekend, straight away that made me think, well, if I don't think he's going to win this weekend, then why would I back him now when I could get 33 to 1? I mean, that would be a massive price, depending on, well, not a massive price, that's way over the top, isn't it? But again, I would, if he does get pushed out after being beaten, I will then weigh up the fact that he's been there, won one and placed, and see what do you think about that.
Yeah, well, I'll just hold that thought because when we start talking about what I think probably are the main players for the race this year, I think there's some interesting strands of form, and I'd like to use those strands of form as we talk them through, and Paisley Park's going to come up as part of that. But just as an overall view on that, the likes of Cider Burley, Paisley Park, Listener Oscar, etc., the horses that have been there and done that, they're now beating horses in that race, and I just don't see any way that they now come back and win again. Yeah, sure. I accept that. If you've still got 25 to 1 floating around for Paisley Park nearer the time, and you've got extra places, maybe there's a consideration at that point. But I don't think I could have any of those in my mind as anti-post bets. I think this is a much stronger and a much deeper race this year. You know, Florian Porter had it his own way, dominated that race last year. He was a comfortable winner, but I don't think he's going to be so comfortable from this year. But we'll touch on him in a second. There's a couple of others that I think sort of potentially enter the mix that I think are worth talking about. Ronald Pump's on the comeback trail. So I think he's likely to turn up in the Hampton's Grace this weekend. And if you can work your magic again, I think that race is probably just worth a little look at as well, because there's some big names potentially going to line up there. They probably won't all stand the ground. It'll be interesting, for example, to see which one Willie sends, whether it's going to be Classical Dream or Soldier.
It'd be great. That's a cracking race right there, isn't
it? If they all turned up, what a race that's going to be! That's the perfect warm up for all the races over Christmas, isn't it? Because there'll be no better race between now and Christmas.
Yeah,
and we've talked about Sada Burley. What price is there? My eyesight isn't good enough, mate. 25 to 1, is that?
Sada Burley 25 for the weekend. Yeah, I guess.
He was third in last year's Stayers, so that for me already gives an indication of, how much stronger that's going to be with the likes of Classical Dream and Abigail Abrams' latest exhibition. The talk is that he's heading that way, and even Ronald Pump in that batting there is ahead of Sada Burley, because don't forget Ronald Pump was second in the Stayers 2 years ago. He missed it last year through a minor injury, I think.
Yeah.
So look, we don't know what's going to turn up on the day yet. We don't have the final deck, so it's hard to really sort of pick the bones out of that race. Honeysuckle isn't the horse we're really talking about today, and we don't know how fit she's going to turn up or whether she's going to get turned over by something that's a bit more of a stayer. But I would love to see either or both of Classical Dream or Abigail Abrams in there, because both those horses interest me. But again, we'll talk about them individually shortly. But what a cracker of a race that potentially is! Just an absolute cracker of a race.
Absolutely.
Just give me your thoughts on a couple of JP horses. Actually, there's been talk, and I've heard a few people getting Sporting John in their book, for example, and there's been talk about if Champ isn't quite the same horse over fences, then maybe he'll revert to hurdles. Both around the 20 to 1 mark. Are they horses you'd write off, or is there any interest there?
Horse I write off. It's bold to write a horse off in something that's not really done before, but Sporting John, write that off. Absolutely no chance. He's up to the class of winning a graded race at the festival. Absolutely no chance. Champ would be much more interested in if I knew he was running, and I did check to see whether he was persevering with chasing before I flirted with the idea of backing him for the Gold Cup, but he'd be 10 next year, and at 20 to 1, I just don't think he'd have to fall for this to be the plan or get well beaten. So I don't think there's any rush to get 20 to 1. So would I write Champ off? No, but there's a lot of things that would need to happen for him to run and be a player. And in terms of betting on it now, wouldn't be interested. But he isn't someone I'd write off. And Sporting John, as I said, just definitely not. What about you?
Yeah, I think I probably agree with all of that. I think Sporting John is a horse that I don't think I'll ever take to. We've got that run at Cheltenham a couple of weeks ago, which was his best run for a long time. It kind of dispelled the myth that he has to go right-handed. So that's out of the window now. So that goes in his plus column. But he's got such a gap to bridge in terms of what he's shown us, his level of ability, the ratings he's put up. Doesn't mean he can't improve, because he is lightly raced. But I just don't see it. He'd have to have some magic carrots to be anywhere near, I think. And with Champ, look, clearly the starting point for the season is go down the Gold Cup route. I think that's right. You look at his back form over hurdles; it's actually really good. He's got some big name scalps to his name through his novice season, and he wouldn't be out of place in a Stayers hurdle. But could I have him winning it? Probably not. I agree. The age thing probably comes into play. Although he was a bit of a late developer and a late starter, so he hasn't got that many miles on the clock. So that's perhaps a little bit unfair. But I don't see it. And he's certainly no bet. Because he's got an intended campaign over chasing, so he's no bet at all. The other one that occurred to me outside of the sort of main bets was Soldier, actually. He's higher rated than Buzz in the flat, and Buzz is the Buzz horse, isn't he? So
that's good.
He's got he's done far more over hurdles than Buzz. There's a big price disparity between them. I can't see any point of him pitching up in the champion hurdle again because he's not good enough. If I look at his breeding, his breeding's stout enough. His granddad was in the Wings, which was the sire to English Dreamer. So, you can't get a better line than that in terms of the potential for him to stay. And on his dam side, he's more stoutly bred than English Dreamer was. So I think there's no reason why Saldio couldn't step up and trip, I think. Whether Willie's thinking that way, who knows? I'm not suggesting a bet here by any stretch of the imagination, but I think he's a bit of a watching brief for me.
What do you think?
I would be interested in if Willie was thinking about stepping him up.
So what if he gets declared for the Hatton's Greystone? What do you think you'd do in that situation? Like 2-4, unlikely to, well, on any known form, wouldn't beat Honeysuckle. But where would you like to see him, or how would you like to see him?
Well,
he put in a big early season performance one year in the Morgiana, didn't he? So
he did.
Fresh. So
he needs to put some performances back to back, really. He obviously has some problems and some issues because there's a lack of consistency there. Whether it's physical, mental, or a bit of both, who knows? So it's hard to rely on. He really is a hard horse to rely on. I don't think I've ever caught him right, actually, if I'm really honest. He's one of those kind of horses. But I genuinely think he would be better over further. How much better is hard to know, but, what is he? He's put up 160 racing post ratings, so, I have to hold a lot of store in racing post ratings. The consistency of them, at least, not single one-offs, but it wouldn't be a massive gap for him to bridge if he improved for further. And for the weekend, for the Morgiana, Honeysuckle wasn't fully tuned up last season, was she, for that race? And this is a tougher race. So, you've got to hope that for her sake, Henry's got her a bit further ahead this year because I think she could be a bit vulnerable, and not just to him.
I would love it if she was beaten. Love it. Just for the pride. If she was beaten and went out in price, it'd be all over that. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. But if she's beaten, it wouldn't bother me. It genuinely wouldn't. Champion hurdle, pinching an extra half a point on her would be very nice, but I'm not sure the bookies will be so generous.
She could pull up, and I'd be banging the drum. Then I'd be like, "This is the bet of the month."
Yeah, absolutely, exactly.
I can sense it. Yeah, you're with Saudi, a couple of 161 RPR ratings. Well, one was beating Milkwood and one against Petit Mouchoir, a 158. Or he was 158, beaten by in that champion hurdle. He went up a massive price. He was quite well fancied, wasn't he? Actually, we quite liked him on the forum, and he just never sort of got back, did he? So he does need to show. I suppose what I was thinking is if he gets declared, then I might sort of have a look at that 20-1. But I suppose given he hasn't really put anything together of note, that's too skinny at the moment as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. I wouldn't be backing him prior to the Hatton's Grace. I'd want it. I'm not bothered about him winning the Hatton's Grace, to be honest. If he runs a decent race and he's there or thereabouts over 2.5, and there are any pretensions of going up to 3, then I'd be interested. If his price was somewhere around that 20s, then I'd be interested. Because it means he's put 3 races together in a run.
Yeah.
First time in his career. And he's still young enough to improve.
Yeah.
He's not Sharjah. People relate him and Sharjah almost as a pair. But Sharjah's a couple of years older. So he's still got time on his side, and You know, a couple of decent runs already this season. Potentially puts a third in the Hatton's Grace. Then, you know, I won't be discounting him at that point.
No, fair enough.
Let's talk about some of the other sort of main players. I think probably a good place to start is with the current champion, Florian Porter. What's your thoughts? Can he go and do it again?
Oh, my thoughts on Florian Porter are that I am not wrong very often, Paul. And I thought last year he wasn't even a player. Like, I did have a bit of a book last year, and he was one of the ones I didn't have back that I don't think I worried about. I can't remember. Maybe I can't remember, but not a horse that I thought would be able to just keep progressing. And then he won, and I was like, oh well, I got that wrong. That's fine. He's obviously a star horse, so backed him next time and got him wrong again, and he didn't win. So just the bias there straight away is that I don't like him. I don't like the horse. Like, you watch it back, he was brilliant. It's the cliche of if it wasn't those connections, what price would he have been? And the fact that he was the price he was and the price he is now is part of that. Like 11 to 1, the best price you can get. That's fair, isn't it?
I think it's too big. I think it's better than fair.
It's the kind of again, straight over, probably the first thing I said, starting point is looking at previous winners. And I've said this loads of times. In fact, I definitely need to actually get the facts for it. But back in previous winners at Cheltenham, at SP is profitable, let alone having anti-post prices. Like, I know I definitely did that. I put it up on the forum a couple of years back and sort of showed that had been the case over the last few years. And there's just been other winners, winners that have gone on and placed since then. So I suppose that 11 to 1, especially while it's with 365, is probably something I'll take before I've uploaded this to YouTube. Just in case.
He's got the course and distance form that trumps all the others that've got the course and distance form, hasn't he? So, you know, he's been there and he's done that. I was the same as you, by the way. I didn't see him coming either. I did get him in my book because I felt as though I had to, but not because I felt he was going to be the winner. The truth is, from that run at Navan at the beginning of December all the way through to the Stayers Hurdle, he didn't come off the bridle. He was that good. You know, he was dominating from the front. It was the switching tactics that did it. As soon as they switched to those front running tactics, he just became a completely different horse.
Yeah.
There's just that little question mark in my head that, you know, and I raised it before, just how good a Stayers Hurdle it was last year. You know, you look at Paisley Park, not quite the same horse he was, you know, a couple of seasons previously, and was still good enough to. Was he second or third? I always forget which way around it was. Was it him that second, or Cider Burley that was second?
Cider Burley was second. Paisley
that's right. Yeah, Paisley was third, and Beacon Edge was fourth, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So look, I can't write him off again this year. You know, I make a book, as you know. He's in my book. Got him in the book fairly early, pretty much straight after Cheltenham. He's been available. I can't remember, but he's been longer prices since. I've added to the longer prices.
I guess, of course, because he pulled up, didn't he, at Punchestown when Classical Dream won?
Yeah,
and then did he fall? Yes, he did.
Fell on season debut when he was going to absolutely hose up. So, you know, you can forgive him that. He's never shown any sign of that before. You don't want to see an F and a P in front of as the last two things in the name, but he's got plenty of time this season.
Yeah, so I like that. I think
I'm okay with it.
Just looking at like with Cider Burley second, like if we used last year's race as a starting point, if he was first, he's 11 to 1. Second is 16 to 1 anti-post, and then there's 1, 2, 3. There's 5 horses around there that I guess we're going to touch on. I should bring up the market again.
Well, I backed him. In fact, I'm saying I backed him at shorter price. I'm just out of curiosity having a look now. I've got him backed at 11s and 12s. So I'm going to back him where he's at the moment. I have no gain from the time of when I backed him, really, which is okay. I'm fine with that. The point I was going to make about him as well was he was given 168 for his win. And 168 is going to sound like a really harsh stick to beat him with, and I don't mean it that way, because I'm going to compare him to other horses. And I started by saying, some of the big names that have won this race, the likes of Big Bucks, Barracuda, and English Dreamer. Clearly the daddy of them all was Big Bucks. 170, 172, 176 ratings winning the Stayers Hurdle, and a peak rating of 178 at Aintree. Barracuda, his wins were 171, 176. And those two were running 170s regularly. A high 160s was a bad day for those horses. That's a peak rating for Flooring Porter. As I say, I don't want this to be a stick to beat him with, because there's been a lot of horses that have run in the race ever since. And using 168 as a comparison, he's quite a good winner, shall we say. You've got the likes of English Dreamer, who was a 3-time winner, who put up ratings either side of that of 167, 169 in the race, and his best rating in the race is 174. Flooring Porter isn't Big Bucks or Barracuda, but could he be an English Dreamer that can push that 168 mark up to low or mid 170s? And that's the question for me, because I think somebody's going to hit 170 this year.
That is what I was going to ask you. I've brought this list up, so I was like, which of these do you think has got a 170 performance in? I can only see,
I think possibly two, actually. But
yeah, there's two that I would say, but I don't think I believe it. But I think I could guess the two you would say.
Well,
which would be? I mean, Classical Dream has to be one as a supreme winner. Willie Mullins improved at Punchestown. The other one, can it be Time Hill? Buzz?
No.
It depends how much you rate Buzz, I suppose. And then I don't think another one of those can hit a 170.
I think the other one that can potentially hit a 170 is Abacadabra's.
Yes, okay. I was not looking that far down.
There's an interesting comparison with Classical Dream. I know we're going to talk about them individually in a moment, but there's an interesting comparison with those two, because they hit the identical same racing post rating in their Supremes, one winning it and one finishing second. Both of them need a step up and trip. Classical Dreams had that now and blitzed them at Punchestown. I'll talk about that race in a second. Don't want to get into that detail until we talk about him specifically. And I'm absolutely convinced that Abacadabras needs that trip. Now, I backed him very early anti-post on the basis that I was convinced that Gordon would step him up in trip. I put it on the forum, and I know a lot of people jumped on that at the time. And I think somebody's brought that back up again, and he's been backed again.
I am just going to check, because now, despite me thinking I haven't backed anything, I think I might have been one of those that got on when you put that up. And I can't remember. Was he 33?
He was 33s, exactly.
Yes, that. I think.
I backed him at 33s, and I backed him again just to bounce my book off at 20s.
Yeah, I know obviously you're going to go on to it now. Abacadabra, is a horse I've been mad keen on for a long time. Like from, I think Scooby put him up for the Supreme that year, and I was mad keen on him that year. Was absolutely gutted when Shishkin did him. And then I've always just been of the thought that a strong run 2 miles would be absolutely perfect for him. So, I suppose now he's gotten older, I definitely buy into the... I don't know, part of me still thinks he could, in a perfectly run, or a well-run 2 mile hurdle, that he could still show something. But I think, obviously, if he gets declared for this Tatton's Grace, that's going to be a massive, massive indication, depending on how he runs there, whether he looks like a stayer, and then he could be a massive player.
Well, he's already run and won over 2.5 at Aintree, beating Buzz in the process, and Cosley, even though he made a mistake at the last. So I just think he's only going to improve again for going up further. He's bred for the job. But just want to finish off on Flooring Porter. I think there's something else to discuss with him. And that is, that massive improvement that happened that coincided with him front running. And then missing the break and, not front running at Punchestown. He either sulked or there was something physically wrong with him, because he ran like an absolute pig. And you've got to be sure that somebody is going to take him on and at the front of his races at some point this season, and probably in the Stayers Hurdle itself. I kind of want to see what happens when that happens this season. I want to see him running in one of those bigger races, probably over Christmas, against better horses, with, I don't know, someone like Willie Mullins, Gordon Elliott putting a couple in there, and one of them specifically to take him on for the lead. I want to see what happens, because I have a nagging doubt that he has to see daylight and he has to have his own way.
Yeah. There's been a cut, like Cole Harden won that way, didn't he? And then Flooring Porter won. And then I was thinking Liz Negroska didn't make all, did he? He was just prominent. Oh, no, he didn't make all, did he?
He didn't make prominent. He was the one that benefited the most from them going an absolute furious gallop. It's the fastest run Stairs I've ever seen. Yeah. The pace collapsed at the end, completely collapsed. And then I think the one that was the stoutest stayer.
That's it. And then one of Big Bucks is he definitely made a lot of the running, didn't he? Which was, I think, his least. I can't remember who he beat, but it was one of his later ones, wasn't it? Anyway, yeah. But yeah, no, that'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and you can't. He needs to put up a similar rating. He needs to put up a high 160s rating when he's taken on for the lead for you to be confident that he can go and repeat the dose.
So you think he's more Cole Harden than Ingles Drever?
Look, the truth is I don't know, and that's kind of the point I want to know. Before I would get stuck into a horse like him second time around. It's a bit like the argument that I ran for Put the Kettle On, and I think a lot of people are buying into that now after the Schlur. That she needs to have things her own way. She needs to dictate her own pace. And if she gets taken on for that lead, she's not the same horse. Well, the same thing could apply to Flooring Porter. I think it's less likely. I think it's more likely that something was wrong with him on the day, or he's over the top, or whatever the case may be at Punchestown. But I don't know, and I want to know. And I reckon a trainer somewhere is going to take him on to find out. And it'll be either Willie Mullins or it'll be Gordon Elliott, because they want to know. They want to know before they go in with Classical Dream or Abigail Abrams or anybody else. So I think we'll get to find out. There's a couple of others that I actually want to group a couple of horses together. Time Hill and Latest Exhibition. Now, Paul Nolan said that Latest Exhibition reverts to hurdles, and the plan is to stay at hurdle unless things go wrong. So let's assume that Latest Exhibition heads that way. And the reason I want to put them in together is because we've got that novice form through the Albert Bartlett with the pair of them. So assuming they've improved similarly, you'd expect them to be finishing similarly in this. So what's your thoughts on those two?
I really liked them last year. I did fancy Latest Exhibition for, and obviously Monkfish, but those two head and shoulders for the RSA or whatever the 3 mile novice chase is now called. Massively liked Time Hill as well. Had related doubles on all of them, like the combinations, even when it looked like Latest Exhibition may drop to the Marsh. Fancied them. I loved that bit of form. The thing putting me off now would be that that's 2 years ago, and just assuming that horses are still the same 2 years on. When if we were talking 25 to 1, 25 to 1, 33 to 1 about these kind of horses, then I'd love it. But obviously we're not, because they've shown that Albert Bartlett was an absolute cracking race. So whilst I really like Time Hill, and I really, really like Latest Exhibition, I think his Novice Chase debut, was it his Novice Chase debut? Was really, really good. It just got blown out of the water because Monkfish's was absolutely phenomenal. But I really liked. I think I might be remembering that wrong. I'm sure I'll get pulled up in it, but I remember really liking him. And I wanted him, or did consider him, last year. But then Paul Nolan sort of put me off by just the talk about them just not bothering turning up if Monkfish was going to be there, and sort of negative, like the festival wasn't the be all and end all, and he might be better suited to other races, and instead of going for, and that's put me off just looking at his price at 14 to 1. I know this year he said that's the plan, but so why wasn't Cheltenham the plan properly all last year? I just found it a little bit defeatist, and it's making me think, well, at 14 to 1, it's not he's not a star. Like he's really, really likable. I really, really do like the horse, but 14-1 is just too short, and I just think he'll probably get beaten by something along the way, or he won't, and I can live with that. I mean, he's an absolute forum legend. Oh, can you remember who put him up? Someone put him up at a massive price, didn't they? I'll make sure I find out and I'll put it in the comments, because that was one of the best. Like,
I think it might be Charlie. I think it might be Charlie.
Was it Charlie?
Apologies if I'm wrong.
Well, I'll check and I'll put it, because that was fantastic.
I think it might have been Charlie.
Bro. So yeah, I'd love him. I just don't fancy him at the price. Knowing it's the target, I suppose it's not inconceivable that I would back that, but I just think he might get beaten along the way. It's the kind of when he next runs and is declared, and I see the market support behind him on the day. If I feel like he might win that race, it may force me to back him, or I would sort of maybe hope he's beaten along the way and gets forgotten about a little bit, and just look for. He's never going to be one that's. He's never going to go a favourite for the race, is he? No matter what, if he went unbeaten between now and then, he still wouldn't be favourite, because he's not trained by one of the big two. So I'm not that bothered. And Time Hill was really disappointing in France. So again, he could bounce back, but has he been pushed out to a price that I'm scrambling to look at him for? Not really. I mean, he will face some decent horses. There's only a certain. The good thing about this division is that they sort of do get funneled into. There's only a certain number of races they can really go for this side of the water. There's like the long walk hurdle. What? The long walk hurdle. You've got the Cleve hurdle, the one over Christmas, and that's pretty much it. Like, so they should clash, and it'll give us a good gauge of where Time Hill is at again. So yeah, I like them both. I'm just not blown away by either. That's where I'm at with them.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. Look, they're both really good, solid horses, aren't they? You know, they are Grade 1 horses, but are they Grade 1 winning horses is the question. So, you know, latest exhibition is as game as they come, but he seems to follow horses' backsides around everywhere. There's more twos against his record than ones. Time Hill, and that, you know, I'm being harsh here, but I think he's a very, very good horse. I think he'll run his race. I think you can totally rely on him. You know, whether you can rely on Paul Nolan to make good decisions, who knows? You know, I don't know. Where he ends up, whether he ends up in this race, whether he ends up not coming at all, whether he goes chasing. After last season, it just felt a bit messy, and I suspect, you know, there would have been some regrets not turning up in the novice chase, because Monkfish didn't. That was Monkfish's worst performance of the season. You know, I'm sure the ratings that he got for that don't reflect that, but it just was. And from being a horse that was sort of, I don't know, somewhere between 3 and 8 lengths or whatever it was behind Monkfish every time they met, finishing second. I'm not sure there would have been too much between them with the mistakes that Monkfish made, and Monkfish was a bit flat. So I'm sure they've got regrets. But we say that, and now they're talking about the hurdles campaign rather than the Gold Cup campaign. So it's hard to figure out. If he were mine, he's not, you know, and connections make their own decisions. He'd be chasing, and I'd be having a good crack at the Gold Cup. But you know, for a horse that was 3 or 4 lengths behind Monkfish, and Monkfish, the horse that was the favourite for the Gold Cup before he was injured, you know. Anyway,
it leaves me off. John has just messaged us with a few of the points he had made, and one of them fits in there. Just regarding, and I think someone asked on the forum as well, what we think about anything reverting from fences this year. And he's said that big books has skewed the perception of this race. Failed chasers are always overbet because of him, and I think that's something I would agree with. And I know that because everyone's always looking for a horse that's has been chasing and comes back, as if they're going to be big books. And I remember looking at that a few years back, and just there's not really any that I could think of that actually have made a splash in the division. And then also when we were speaking about Flooring Porter going back to back, John had said that him and Ingles-Drever winning 7 between them overdoes repeat winners. It's not been done since, which I suppose is fair enough. It is a race you assume you get repeat winners in because of those two, isn't it? So you know it can be done, but obviously I'd back Flooring Porter. That's a bit of an outlier. We're not talking about that now, but yeah, that latest exhibition, that would at 14-1, that would put me off. Sort of a failed chase campaign.
Yeah, again, look, I think, you know, extra places nearer the time at double figure odds, you might consider him, but as a single anti-post bet, then I suspect very few people would just have him as their one selection. And I think the other thing is, you know, if you tie his form into time, and I know it's easy to pick holes in what I'm going to say here, but you can't help but tie their form together. And if we're saying Paisley Park is no longer good enough, and Time Hill his form is somewhere around Time Hill and Paisley Park's form is somewhere around each other, then it just doesn't scream out winner to me. I think in some respects, you know, I'd use Time Hill as a stick to beat latest exhibition with. But, you know, I am going to throw something back into the mix here. They're both very lightly raced. 11 and 12 chases each. I think the latest exhibition's probably only had 4 runs over hurdles in total. So 5 runs in total. So he's got the scope to improve from where he's been. You know, potentially improve his mark past his chase mark, which is up at 160. But again, it just doesn't feel as though there's a high 160s or even a 170s performance that it would take to win this race. But they are both in the sort of region where they can place. You know, they don't have to improve too much from where they've been to place in the Stayers Hurdle. Paisley Park's been putting low 160s races together last season. You know, they're not old horses. They're lightly raced, and there's still possible improvement to come. So I wouldn't discount either of them, to be fair. But, you know, I'm not rushing to back them either. That's kind of my position on them. And I think, you know, as I say, it's fairly easy to put the two of them together. Next, the horse that's come in for a lot of support in the last month, and I kind of get why. Buzz.
Yeah. So I did. I saw Andy Holding had ticked him at 20-1 on odds checker, hadn't he, before he ran? I saw that, and I didn't really like it. And I heard Jono say that he was blown away by it in our chat, and I was like, whoa, did we watch the same race? Because I just was I don't think he said blown away, but I think he said more impressed than he thought he would be. But if, like, single figures based on that run, I would think was hilarious. However, I know it's not that. I think the case for him. Are you going to do the case for? Do you like him?
No.
No. Okay. But I'll do a bit of the case for him then. That Jono was going to say about backing and improving horses for it. So you look at some of the winners. You've got Flooring Porter, Paisley Park, Thistlecrack, Sam Spinner to an extent. More of that. We're all new to the scene, won a string of trials and have done well. And he is an improving horse against horses that we can. There's definite reasons, like you've gone through, why you wouldn't fancy Time Hill latest exhibition. Flooring Porter, a repeat winner, not as likely. Abracadabras would fit the same mould, I suppose, as something new coming into the division. But other than that, then you're just looking at the Classical Dream. So I can see why. But it's going to be hard for me to argue the case for Buzz when I don't really like him. But I suppose let me just check if he's given me any more ammunition than that. No. So, what do you reckon? Why no Buzz?
Look, I'd probably been more interested in last year than I am this year, if I'm honest, because the race last year was, you know, a bunch of unexposed horses and Flooring Porter that I didn't quite get. So I could have seen myself backing him last year. Again, he's in my book this year, but, you know, he probably won't be there come the festival. That's how I feel about him. I have to have him there because of my approach. But his highest racing post rating over hurdles is 157. It's quite a big step up to potentially win this. He needs to improve more than the Stone for a step up in trip. As a comparison, Penn Hill, I suppose, was the last flat type horse. Penn Hill won that year with a rating of 162, which is pretty low. It was a poor renewal last year. Penn Hill, I think, if he was in this year's renewals, probably about £8 to £10 short of what would be required. As a comparison, Penn Hill was rated 106 on the flat, Buzz is 100. So Penn Hill had the better flat speed. That doesn't necessarily mean anything when they go over hurdles, but it's just something to try and pin the form down with. As far as comparisons are concerned with this race, I have a problem with the fact that he's not run at Cheltenham. The rumour is that he's going to Ascot instead. Is it the Long Walk at Ascot? I'm sure it is. So that's where he's apparently headed. If he's going to the Long Walk, he's not going to appear at Cheltenham on New Year's Day. Could appear at Trials Meet at the end of January. If he does appear at Trials Meet at the end of January, he's been on the go for a hell of a long time after winning the Cesarewitch. I think plenty were having a pop at Gary Moore for the way he was campaigning Goshen on the flat, and that was going to be a problem for the Champion Hurdle, but nobody seems to be too concerned about a long campaign and kicking off with a flat campaign with Buzz. So by the time he gets to the end of March, he's going to have been on the go for a long time. So he either gets wound down and gets some time off, which means he doesn't get the opportunity to run at Cheltenham, or he does run at Cheltenham at the end of January, and by the time he gets to March, he's already had a pretty tough season. And even then, I've not yet seen anything in his form over hurdles that tells me he's a Stayers Hurdle winner. I don't understand why people have jumped on him. I understand, that Cesarewitch was a good win, beat Burning Victory. We could probably talk about Burning Victory for this race too, although she's never been mentioned.
Literally just lined that up myself as something smart to say.
But the point is, if you just take the flat form, and I know this is unfair, and people will rip me apart for it, but he beat Burning Victory, but she gave him weight, and if she was in the Stayers, he'd have to give her £7 because she gets the mare's allowance. But who knows? This is kind of the point. Somebody will then say to me, well, how's that going to translate if Burning Victory goes into a Stayers Hurdle? Well, there you go. There's the argument, isn't it? You just defeated the argument, because how's that translate with Buzz 2?
Yeah,
therein lies the problem.
Yeah, of the limited anti-Buzz bets I've had so far, Burning Victory is one of them in the mare's hurdle. But she's 33 to 1 in what would be an easier race in theory. I actually really like that as a bet. Vega put that up just before the Cesarewitch, and then I think she was still a decent price afterwards. I suppose for anyone that likes those related doubles, you could have Burning Victory and Buzz. That's 206 to 1 at the moment.
Big price.
Massive. It's definitely happening. Well, what price would Buzz go if she won the mare's hurdle?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
The 33 to 1 shot tip. But I think, to be honest, I think that's the kind of bet that I would place now, put a little bet on, and it would stop me thinking about Buzz and the fact he's single figures. And I would hope, because I do like Burning Victory as a bet, I'm almost talking myself into it just to have a little each way bet on that, and just not have to think about Buzz for a long time after, and just hope that she turned up. That's the kind of way I like to horses that are just got in price have a little flyer.
That is absolutely your kind of bet. I'd actually be genuinely surprised if you don't finish this and jump straight on and do that bet.
It's happening.
So look, Buzz 8 to 1. No, can't have that at all. Got him in my book at 25s. Not being smart about it. I think plenty of people have. The forum was very good at getting that sort of word out and getting those prices. And He's one for my book, but do I see him still being in my book when on Thursday morning of the festival? Probably not. Maybe the place part. I'll leave one independent and make it to the race.
Yeah, I think that's the big difference between your approach and my approach. Is that if I had him at 25-1 and he lined up on the day, just knowing I'd beat an SP by that far, I'd let him run, because I'm wrong often enough, but get paid for it in that approach, which I like. Getting paid when you're wrong is a nice approach.
Absolutely.
I know you've done a post, haven't you, yesterday or today, just explaining your approach, haven't you, a little bit?
Yeah. Look, I mean, somebody picked me up on the forum on saying that you could focus down on a handful of stables and you're going to get 60% of the winners. It was factually correct. And Aaron looked at my diary and said, "Well, that's not your approach." Put two targets together, and made 2 and 2 make 5. But I'm kind of glad that you asked that question and raised it, because sometimes I forget sometimes that there are newer people on the forum that haven't read some of the stuff that I've written previously, and don't get that. So it was a good timely reminder just to put something out there and give some context to some of the things that are right. So anyway, sort of off track. Talking about Buzz neatly takes us to Abigail Abrams, because Abigail Abrams was the horse that beat him at Aintree over 2.5. So what's your thoughts?
Yeah, like I say, I've checked. I did back him when you said so. I have backed him. I think he's the only horse I've got backed, and I think he's the only horse I'd be interested in backing. Flooring Porter at 11, Abacadabra's at 20. If he gets declared for the Hatton's Grace, I would. Yeah. I think I would back now. I wouldn't go full backing him now. I'd put like half what I wanted to on when he was declared, and then see how he ran. And obviously, I'd either cash out or then increase my stake on it, depending. I'm not really expecting him to win. But I suppose if he did, what price would he give if he did? I suppose if he did, it wouldn't be certain that he'd go for the stayers still. There'd be talk of a strongly run 2 mile. So I don't know what I would do. Fortunately, because of you on the forum a while ago, I don't really need to think about it. But I think for anyone not on, 20-1 is fair enough if he gets declared.
Yeah, I think that's right. I like him, if I'm honest. I see a lot of positives in him. I really hope he comes to this race, because I think it's the right race for him. I think he needs. Look, he has the pace to compete at the high level at 2 miles, but he doesn't have the pace to win at the highest level over 2 miles.
There's a lot of horses like that.
Yeah,
if you think there'd be Nichols Canyon for Heen to an extent, although he obviously did have the pace, but who else? Solwit. I'm just looking at some of John, isn't it? Super Sunday did well. Annie Power placed, definitely had 2 mile form. Solwit's a really good one.
Solwit's a really good example.
Yeah, I remember.
He's a bit of a one-off, because he is the only horse that I'm aware of that made his debut at 3 miles and won the stayers when he'd been campaigned solely at 2 miles. But both myself and a friend, had been utterly convinced that he needed the step up. We never actually backed him until he was declared. But we'd been banging the drum for him to go up to 3 miles, and the stayers hurdle was made for him. It's one of those nice sort of things that you feel vindicated. It doesn't happen very often. I get it wrong most of the time, but it was one of those situations where you just know the horse is going to benefit from the step up in trip. So and that's exactly about Abigail Abrams. Exactly, I have the same feeling about Abigail Abrams that I had then.
So is that a strong bet for you then? If you were looking at this now on your own, no book behind, is that a strong bet compared to other races and bets that you've got?
Yeah, let me give you my rationale, because I think that's actually quite important. He's been beaten along the way by all the horses that matter over 2 miles. I don't think there's anything to gain by campaigning now at the Champion Hurdle. that race would have to completely fall apart for him to win. You know, he's been beaten by Aspire Tower, who was 4th last year, and is likely to improve because bear in mind he was a 5-year-old last year. Honeysuckle has properly put him in his place. You know, he's not beaten Honeysuckle. He's been turned over by Sharjah in the past. So all the horses that are going to be winning or around the places, are beaten. And unless Gordon Elliott, has found £10 of improvement, probably more to be fair, 12 to 14 pounds of 12 pounds of improvement over 2 miles, he's not winning a champion hurdle.
Yeah, I think I reluctantly agree to that. You know what? Like I think I probably said earlier on, or I did say earlier on, like I still think if things fell perfectly for him, but I think that's just, it's probably biased from being so strong on him for that Supreme when Shishkin picked him up and being so strong on him the year after. Like him and Saint Roi were my 2 absolute, and I think it's time to let go of that. And I think you've convinced me that 3 miles is the way I'm going to get my money back.
It has to be. Look, he's been beaten 10 lengths and 14 lengths by Honeysuckle. He fell in between in the champion hurdle. Who knows what would have happened, but the likelihood is it would have been beaten by 10 to 14 lengths.
Would have won by 10 lengths, yeah.
Yeah, so again, Aspire Tower beat him by 4.5 lengths. That kind of ties in too. We know his level. We know his level. Can he improve a little bit next season over 2 miles? Possibly, but can he improve enough? Absolutely no way. Gordon Elliott knows that. And if he's serious about him being a Cheltenham horse, he's either got to get him handicapped and get his mark down from 158 and go and win the county hurdle. Don't think that's what he'll be doing. I think he'll have other horses in mind for that. So realistically, for me, it's the Stayers and then on to the Liverpool hurdle. Or the Stayers hurdle at Punchestown. So I just can't see him going any other route. And I think there's some other things that sort of really convinced me of that. He's a Davidoff, and Davidoff progeny tend to want 3 miles as they mature. And he's out of a Cadidal mare, which is a proper stay in French line of breeding. And there's another horse that was another couple of horses that I think are probably worth mentioning in the same breath of where the potential could be. Big Books was a Cadidal, and so was Long Run. And both of those, by the way, in terms of their crossbreeding, were probably slightly less stoutly bred than Abigail Abrams.
Interesting, yeah. I mean, I could just that breeding went straight over my head, but
well, look, the bottom line is stepping up in trip should hold no fears whatsoever.
Yeah, no, I like that. I really like that. I suppose my fear would be if he's beaten along the way, given how well he performed at Aintree, maybe they skip and just went there. But I suppose that's, you wouldn't know. It's not worth worrying about too much, is it? I mean, it's feasible if he's beaten along the way at 3 miles, they just hold him back for Aintree, where we know he's performed well. But then that said, it's not like he hasn't performed well at Cheltenham, is it? You don't finish that close to Shishkin if you're not a very, very good horse, do you?
No, absolutely not. And look, I think part of the rationale for me is you do have to second guess trainers sometimes, but you can apply logic, can't you? And the logic says he's not winning a champion hurdle, and Connections will want to win something if they can at the Cheltenham Festival. And the thing that's most winnable for him at this point in time, unproven, but the most winnable at this point in time is the Stayers hurdle. But at 20-1, I'm happy for that to be a bet. So that was a very long-winded way of me saying yes. I think he's a bet at 20-1.
Yeah, I agree. I've just literally checked, and I am on at 33, but I am going to back him again at 20-1 if he's declared this weekend. I like that.
Yeah. So, to be honest, I don't care whether he's declared this weekend or not. I think he's a bet at 20-1, whether he is or isn't.
Yeah, I like to hold on just in case. If something's intended to run and then doesn't, just in case. It's mainly a Willie Mullins thing that wait till the horse is declared before backing. But
yeah, absolutely. Right, that brings me to Classical Dream, and I know what you're going to say about Classical Dream. You're not having him. You're not backing him. I can hear the words now.
I like Classical Dream, but I do like Classical Dream, but it's not hard. I haven't even considered backing him. As soon as I saw he was favourite, I thought, oh, brilliant, there'll be some bets in this race, and didn't really think there was. Maybe even like you can make the case, and I'll tear it down.
Well, look, I think he just wins, doesn't he? You know, he's put up a 170 performance already, first time over 3 miles after a year out. I mean, that's just wow material. I've heard people saying he won that race because other horses were over the top, and I've heard all the reasons that people have given for him winning that race, other than the reason he won the race, because he was just bloody good. And that's the best staying hurdle performance, individual staying performance I've seen since those horses that I mentioned earlier. You know, all of those sort of classic horses that won those big stayers hurdles. And he put up a time performance that went with it. You know, 171 on his first try at the trip against, you know, serious horses. And he didn't just beat them, he absolutely blew them away. Completely blew them away. And they were horses that have been in multiple grade ones. So, you know, I'm not having the arguments against in terms of that race specifically. I could listen to the arguments about, you know, he's had some wayward tendencies in the past, and, you know, there have been some fitness issues. And I think that's valid, but there was no signs of the wayward tendencies there at Punchestown, probably for the first time. And hopefully that's because he's a far more mature horse now. You know, I think Connections were completely blown away by it. Willie's initial thing was about going chasing and, you know, potentially going and winning an RSA with him. But then on reflection, I think they realised what they got. You know, they got home and realised just how good that was. And, you know, he would only have to come close to repeating that performance, and the stayers hurdle is just his. There's a couple of other sort of things in the background for me. If you go back to his Supreme, I may get some of this wrong because I'm relying on memory here. But he wasn't.
Bring it up if you like.
One at the time for that season. I think something else was Willie's number one, and the thought was that Classical Dream probably needed to go at least a 2.5 for the Ballymore, so they were already considering him as a horse that needed further.
It was soft ground, wasn't it? There was Aramont. He was favourite for the Ballymore, and then I think there was rain, and he finished head to head with he beat Aramon, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
In a Group 1, Grade 1, Group 1. We get slated in a Grade 1, and then there was talk about him coming back in trip to the Supreme because it'd be strongly run, and that's the race that you would run stayers in. I think he was a non-runner, no bet, decent price for it, and then he got absolutely walloped, didn't he, for it?
Well, I don't think he was that short a price. I think he went off like 6-1 or 13-2 or something.
Yeah, it was 9-2 favourite Fakir Dudery. Aramon was 8-1, so he was Willie's number one in the race.
Yeah, I'm sure there were 3 or 4 horses ahead of him in the market. I think it was because people had doubts about him over the 2 miles and wanting further. And there had been talk about that. The stable themselves had talked about it. I think even Ruby had talked about him wanting 2.5.
It was, Al Dancer. It was the Al Dancy and Fakir Dudery.
Yeah. So, wasn't there another one in Di Walters colours as well? Weren't there a couple of Di Walters horses in that race? Al Dancer and another one.
That was the year after, wasn't it? With
wasn't there a Henderson horse in there? There was Di Walters horse as well. It was actually relatively short. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter really. But anyway, look, the point I'm making here is that even at that point, they were thinking that he wanted further, and that was in his Supreme season. You know, he's had a season hurdling, he's had a season off in between. So, and again, you know, on breeding, every suggestion that he probably wants a trip. Has always wanted a trip, and everything he did over 2 miles was a bonus, and what a big bonus to go with a Supreme. So I don't know. There's a lot to like about him for me. Doesn't come without some risks. You know, as I said, you know, he's had some wayward tendencies in the past that hopefully have gone now. I'm not too concerned about that. I'm more concerned about him staying fit. And the point that you make about his price, 4-1, that for me is the risk you take in fitness.
You can get 5 with some decent firms.
Well, I presume you'll get 9-2 with a price boost at various places as well. So you could almost back him each way if you so minded. I don't mind the price. I actually don't mind the price because he wins it only goes one way. If he turns up in the Hatton's Grace and doesn't win, he's probably still going to be a similar price. If he goes anywhere near in the Hatton's Grace, he's probably going to be 5-2 or 3-1. And I think he wins. I think I genuinely think the only risk to him winning that race is Abigail Abrams. I don't think any others beat him. I think Flooring Porter for me is third. If you wanted me to give you the order, I think they'd finish, and if they all turned up fit and well,
it'd be pretty impressive. If you can give us the 1, 2, 3 on the 24th of November, I will take that.
Well, I'll give it a go, and I'll say Classical Dream wins it. Abigail Abrams at 20-1 or whatever he is now finishes second, and Flooring Porter at 11-1 finishes third. There we go.
Fair enough. I mean, I haven't got any reasons not to like him. Classical Dream is one of those horses that I was aware over the summer had gone favourite, and it just stopped me looking at the race. It's just like, I can't back at 4 or 5-1 this far out. Missed backing him before Punch's time, which would have been the time that I usually would have a look at those things. Hey, Shane, there's people on the forum that are on him at, I guess he was a bigger price before Punch's time. Is he in your bucket?
Well, prior to Punch's Town, he wasn't quoted, I don't think.
Wasn't he?
I took 6-1. No, in fact, I took 13-2 with a boost straight after that race. And I think 1 or 2 people commented that I was a bit mad taking that 13-2, but it's my style. Making a book, that's fine for me. Again, if somebody was making a single bet for the Cheltenham Festival a year on at 13-2, I'd think they were mad. So
nobody's doing that.
That's fair enough.
Is ground an issue for him? Do you think I remember that being that? I haven't looked into this. This might be way off, but needing softer ground being a thing that is in my head. I can't remember why. It might be proven absolute nonsense.
I think wasn't Yield at Punchestown. I'm sure it was Yield at Punchestown, which is
it was, and that's his best performance. So that's that argument done.
What else can I think of say about him? There's probably not too much more to say.
So basically, we've spoken for 1 hour 7 minutes to once again say back the favourite.
Well, yes, that's true.
Sorry, guys. Sorry for wasting an hour of your lives.
I recommend any of the 3. I think, look, the bets, if you're recommending them, are Abigail Abrams at 20-1 and Flooring Porter at 11-1. I think they are both very good prices. I would have them as second and third favourite.
And of course, the 206-1 related double Burning Victory and Buzz.
Absolutely. Actually, I'm going to throw something else out before we finish, Kev. There is a well-pedalled stat that 5-year-olds don't win stayers hurdles. Well, it's a very good stat for a reason, because 5-year-olds don't win stayers hurdles. But actually, they don't perform too badly. You don't get many of them that turn up in the race. I did a bit of looking back at this. There have been 7 in the last 16 years that have turned up in the race. And given you'll get extra places, you'll get 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7 places when there's a fairly big field with the likes of Paddy Power and Sportsbook and perhaps Sky Bet. What they do is perform really well. So a set of 7 runners, 5 of those 7 runners have finished between 3rd and 5th. Smad Place finished 3rd. Ebadian finished 5th at 66-1. Blazing Bailey was 3rd. Casper Bliss was 5th. Fire Dragon was 4th. The only 2, incidentally, that didn't finish in the top 5 was Wonderful Charm, which was a Nichols horse, and actually has been a bit of a standing dish at Cheltenham in the Hunter Chasers most recently. But it had a breathing issue that was reported and corroborated by the vet, so that had a problem, so it had an excuse. Ironically, the other horse that ran in the Stayers Hurdle as a 5-year-old was Tiger Roll, at 50, and ran in it down the field at 50-1. There you go.
That's crazy.
And the reason I mention that is he was the most recent runner, 5-year-old, to run in the Stayers Hurdle. And it just got me thinking, as a Gordon Elliott horse, whether Gordon Elliott would possibly be thinking about one of his 4-year-olds now, 5-year-olds in March for the Stayers Hurdle. Zanahiyr is the one that sort of immediately springs to mind, I would suggest. But I can't help but feeling that his campaign is going to be geared about having some sort of reasonable mark for the Coral Cup, and if they can't get it, maybe he does turn up there. But the one that I think might is Dufflecoat.
Yeah, do you know, I couldn't think of the name because he looked like a dour stayer from every race, didn't he, last year? I guess
there's just this great bit of form, isn't there? Because he ran in the juvenile hurdle at the Paddy Power meeting at Cheltenham last year. And beat Adagio fairly comfortably. He gave Adagio £5 and he won by 5 lengths going away. Now, Adagio clearly has improved since then. Run a huge race in the Great Wood Hurdle the weekend before last. Finished second off top weight. And he's now up at 152. Dufflecoat at the moment's on 143, and you think Gordon Elliott will be looking to exploit that at some point. But he'll also be mindful that he's probably going to exploit that in Ireland, because I reckon if he brings him over here, the UK handicapper will reassess his mark based on Adagio and probably put him out of handicaps. And that's kind of the theory. I think if Gordon Elliott is thinking about running Dufflecoat at the festival, I think he may already be handicapped out of a handicap. And he'll be tempted to run him as a 5-year-old in the Stayers Hurdle. Now, I'm not going to sit here and recommend him as a bet. There's too many ifs and buts there. What I am going to recommend is that he goes on the watch list and 33-1. If he has the right entries, and there is a really good possibility of that happening, I think he's quite a nice horse to have at a decent price with extra places. I can see him winning a big race around Cheltenham. He's already run a big race around Cheltenham as a very inexperienced horse. He's only had 4 lifetime runs over hurdles. He's obviously okay and fitting well, because Gordon's had him out a couple of times on the flat in October, presumably just to get his fitness up. I'll be really interested to see where he gets entries. Very, very interesting. He's on my watch list. So just one more horse I wanted to mention for the Stayers, and he's a watch list horse, and that's Dufflecoat.
Very nice indeed.
And I guess the last thing is a poll. I think, what is it, the 6 big names that we've mentioned against the rest. Any other suggestions that people have got? But I'll be really interested to see what a poll comes up with. I guess the named horses are Flooring Porter, Time Hill, Latest Exhibition, Buzz, Abigail Abrams, and Classical Dream. And maybe another as the 7th category, but I'm sure our erstwhile members will talk about any other fancies in great detail.
Perfect. And I think thanks everyone for getting involved and letting us know what you want us to do. I think we'll definitely do that next time. Really like the long shot idea. We'll have a look at doing that one next, do you reckon, Paul?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a really good shout. There's there's some value around the markets, and it'll disappear quickly once we start getting into the December period. So I think it's certainly something we need to do, if not at the end of this month, early December, before those horses start getting found and prices start to fall.
Yeah, cool. Perfect. Anything else you want to say? Anything you want to get off your chest?
That's it from me. I've probably overdone it to death this week, so apologies to everybody if they've had to do this in 2 or 3 listens. But I think it's worth going through that detail. Hopefully it was. Yeah.
Well, we had fun, didn't we? That's at least one viewer and 1 like.
Exactly that.
And people, I hope they've appreciated the effort that went into getting that Fat Jockey terrible looking logo in the corner, because that took me at least half an hour. So.
When we came on and I saw that in the corner, I was fundamentally impressed. I have to have children to do technology for me, so God knows how you did that.
Yeah, magic, mate. Absolute magic. Right. Thanks very much, everyone.
Brilliant. Cheers, Kev, and thank you, everybody. And I'll catch you all in the forum.
See you later.